Whoa! Let's just talk this out. I'm sure we can come to a solution.
And I won't save you, Russ. Thank you for all you've done. It's been an honor.
That was a pretty good film, actually. I wonder what other people thought of it. What did the critics say? What? No. That what?
I loved this movie, Donnie. How can you say you don't like it? I don't care if you're a critic. I've been a fan of this movie since I saw it in theaters.
Well, I hate to tell you, but not all fans are correct, Jake. According to Rotten Tomatoes.
And so now you can probably guess the discussion for our talk today. Rotten Tomatoes. Fans versus critics. Let's begin.
So, Jake, a few films that definitely came out lately. Captain Marvel. What do you have to say about that? I know you didn't see it. I know I'm the one that actually went to go see it, regretfully. So what did you think about everybody, whether it was on one side or the other, critic-wise? Because I'm sure you're informed. I'm sure you've stayed informed online.
Well, I mean, I generally don't go to online sources as much anymore. I tend to just kind of ask people around me, and asking people around me, I've gotten some mixed reviews. Some people really liked it, some people didn't like it, some people were kind of in the middle, which is what you generally expect. One of the reasons, though, I've tried to kind of stay away from the online views is so, though I don't really trust Rotten Tomatoes, I sometimes look at it if I'm not really familiar with a movie, and I'm curious to see what it's going to get. And for this one was curious, so I looked at the Rotten Tomatoes sort of in the first week there. And it had something like, I don't know, 50,000 views. And it had like a pretty mediocre Rotten Tomatoes score. So I was like, okay, yeah, this is kind of the impression I'm getting just based on people I'm talking with. And then, it was about a week or two later, you were talking to me about the movie again. And we looked at the Rotten Tomatoes again. And the 50,000 was down to like 10,000.
Yeah.
And the Rotten Tomatoes score was up significantly. I don't know if you don't have those pictures by chance, do you?
I mean, we'll show them to the audience on screen here while we're overlapping this.
Those
would be great reference points. To me, I think there was definitely, and we'll get into the whole bot conversation, we'll get into a lot of other things first, but to me there was definitely some sort of trolling, if we will, on both sides.
Bots or something like that,
not just one
yeah.
side. Whether it's like a lot of just fake emails or whatever, email accounts going at it. But there was definitely trolling on both sides. I'm not going to say on one side or the other because, I mean, the score came back up to a 60, and I, personally, since I saw it, I say it was a C+. No more than a C+. I wouldn't even give it a B-.
So you kind of put it middle of the road.
It was an average, middle of the road. It was enjoyable. The first act was really enjoyable. And this is of Captain Marvel, of course, that we're talking about here. So the first act was really enjoyable, but the second act, it fell short for me.
Okay.
And she was definitely more powerful than she was almost godlike in that film, which it's hard for me, and this is something that we talked about with our best and worst films of 2018 about how we didn't feel like the hero was in that much trouble. I don't know if it was Black Panther. What did we talk about with that? Do you remember?
I know it definitely came up in Black Panther because like the suit and everything, like it just, I mean, even when he takes so much damage, it just sends off the burst wave that kind of pushes everyone away.
And Captain Marvel didn't really have that hero's journey. That hero's journey being like you feel like she's going to be in trouble, and stuff like that. You want to root for her. I never found myself rooting for her. I think it's Goose the cat.
Okay.
It's either Gus or Goose. I'm not 100% sure on that. But Samuel L. Jackson's character is Nick Fury.
Samuel Jackson is, I mean, what does he not do well?
I honestly believe that it made so much money just because Samuel L. Jackson was in this movie. And Agent Coulson for that slight little bit. But
there's a Coulson. My boy Coulson.
I probably shouldn't have said that.
That was probably a spoiler, but
I did.
That wow, and you were okay. That just happened, folks.
Sorry.
Cover your ears if you didn't see the movie. I didn't see the movie either, so I'm also now scarred for life.
It's like the first 5 minutes he shows up, so it's not really like you have to wait long.
Scarred.
It's not like he's
for life.
It's not like he's the one that saves the day, but it is actually. I enjoyed the scene that he's in. And the de-aging process, amazing. But we're going to get back to the critic score here. What's your definition of a critic?
Definition of a critic?
Because I think we should define this for the audience, like our personal opinions of what a critic is.
I mean, so generally, like, when if I'm looking up critic scores or something like that, what I'm looking to see is, so are people saying this movie is good? Are people who are supposed to be pretty well versed in like judging whether a movie is good and enjoyable, what are they saying about this film? Are they saying it's something to go watch or something to not go watch? And so that's kind of what I see a critic as. I guess you could argue, though, and I would say I don't tend to think about it for films. I should, but I know, like, if I think of like a portrait or something like that, when I think critic, I think of someone who's going to critique it and point out, like, here's some of the great artistic choices here, or, start discussions like that. I don't think about that as much for movies, and I wonder if maybe I should change my opinion a bit there. But,
well, I mean,
yeah.
film, and like I'm on both sides of the spectrum on this, because I've had conversations, and being a fellow filmmaker, I have conversations that directing sometimes I find myself is not necessarily an art. Like filmmaking in general, even though I'm on that side, I feel like it's not really an art form, which people are going to come at me, but that's fine. But like art to me is like something that you draw or paint or something like that. But it does have its own artistic style and cinematography and stuff like that. And I think my definition of a critic would be to recognize the art in it and the story itself too. And I think a lot of critics fall short on stories now because they're blown away by the CGI, by the effects and stuff like that. That maybe it just ranks up there. And I had this conversation about Avatar the other day with a few of my classmates at the college I go to. But one of the things is because they say Avatar is overrated. And I'm like, okay, I can see your point because it was released in 2009. Don't fact check me on that. I'm about 115% sure it is, but there's always a case for it not being. But I believe it was 2009. You can look that up if you really want to. But 2009 it came out, and it was, and this isn't debatable, but it was ahead of its time.
Oh, certainly.
With the facial captures and stuff like that they did just getting prepared for that film.
I remember one of the things during the time when it was coming out, like other people started using that film to market their own stuff. Like I remember it was I think it was a Samsung phone, or it was some sort of phone, and they had like a projector on the bottom, and they'd show the projector and be like, look at how high tech this is. And they'd project Avatar to show, like, look at these amazing effects, look at this detail. So I think that also speaks something to the technologies, that they were able to create these lush, sort of gorgeous worlds and like very immersive things in the movie. And then these other technology giants started trying to use that movie to promote themselves.
But I think because the CGI has hit such a big stage now to like, even like how Thanos looked in Infinity War, it was like, you couldn't even tell like fake or not. And when The Lion King comes out, you're probably not going to be able to tell whether it's fake. You would think that they used real animals in that. Like watching that trailer, it's amazing. But back on topic, I think because CGI is so much better now and how everything is filmed and the camera qualities and stuff like that, critics more base themselves off the visual style of the film compared to the plot, in which I know that you and me really enjoy.
I'm all about plot. Give me a movie that looks terrible. I watch a lot of old movies sometimes. Give me a movie that looks terrible but just has a great plot any day.
I mean, how can you beat John Wayne? That's going back. Actually, I don't really like westerns that much, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, I mean, westerns, you gotta watch them with certain expectations.
And I had a professor that used to tell me that it's like no matter the great editing, the great visual, if you don't have a story, the movie's always going to bomb. But it seems like Hollywood's not leaning towards that. And especially, maybe it is, but maybe they're just so repeated stories. I don't know.
I mean, there is that argument out there that all stories are just, it's the same ideas just being retold in different ways.
And don't get me wrong, because the more stuff that comes out and the more content, of course, you're going to have like writer's block and stuff like that. And are going to be, because like there's certain films where I take certain points, like the sci-fi film I've been working on. You take a little bit of like say The Giver and a little bit of Star Wars in there and stuff like that, and you have the themes overall. But you never really copy it straightforward. But you have the themes and you have the styles, and sometimes you might base characters off stuff in your imagination that you might have read or thought a character should be.
Again, it's all just, that's where that argument kind of comes from, that all films and ideas are sort of repeats of something else that's been done before. Even if you look at Star Wars, it's largely based on sort of that, I believe it's called the hero's journey. It's like a Greek mythology is I think what it is.
And I come from the school of George Lucas, so
I know.
I love that.
But I don't think there's any issue with that. It's all about, because you can be using like heavy inspiration or reusing sort of old stories pieced together into something and still tell a good story yourself. What matters is really that you're telling something that's unique and interesting, or at least entertaining.
And I think one of the biggest questions today, because if you look all over social media, especially about Captain Marvel, you have both sides of the spectrum coming at each other, and like, I don't want to say a violent clash, but it can get there.
Some of them can get pretty vicious.
So my question is, where do you stand? What side do you necessarily stand on with this? Do you think that the critics are more biased, or do you think that they are just simply doing their job?
I mean, some critics...
Do you want me to go first? I can go first.
Well, so I think there's a mixture here. So, I mean, pretty much just to clarify, so you're asking sort of like, what is the position of critics in this?
Yeah.
Like, what is their purpose?
Well, I mean,
type deal, or-
I would like to hear your opinion. I'm sure we share the same opinion.
Well, just
But-
clarifying what you're asking, though.
Okay, I'll go first. Just to set the stage. Okay, so basically what I'm asking is because I believe, especially in Captain Marvel, I believe that some critics were bought.
Oh.
When you look at, and like, I'm not claiming all critics out there are bought by major studios to endorse the film, but when you look at The Last Jedi, in which, you know, there's no people that like that film are in the minority. It's perceived, and we'll get in a different Star Wars conversation later on.
That's a very interesting one to bring up, and that's one I'm a little more qualified to talk about because I've asked a lot of people and tried to get different opinions.
Well, I don't know, like,
found people on both sides of it.
Yeah, there are people on that side. And I'm not saying that we should discredit anybody that likes the film. I just don't personally believe it was a good Star Wars film. And based off the scores and the overall majority, they didn't like the film. But it's praised like they did.
Yeah, what is the critic score out right now? Somewhere around the 80s, I believe?
I can look this up if you want to. Give me your definition of, or what you think if critics are bought out or not.
I mean, that's all about like the divide between critics and fans to be able to judge. I can't really answer a question like that effectively. But I do think if you see a huge divide, like say Last Jedi was like 80 and the fan score is maybe like 40s, I think you've got an issue there.
And of course, the critic score is 91% on The Last Jedi on Rotten Tomatoes. And you guys will see this on the screen here in a second. 44%.
So there you go. Yeah. So that right there raises some red flags. Don't forget the Russian
bots that attacked.
You know, I think when you come back, this comes back to, I said this earlier for Captain Marvel, I think if you're going to come down to bots, is it possible there people that didn't like the film use bots to influence the scores?
Well,
totally.
I just love that they named the country.
Oh, they always, I mean, they blame Russia for everything.
And this is, that's true. And but the thing to me is, don't you think that they have better things to do with their time than tank a Star Wars film?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Oh, 100%.
Russia's got other problems to deal with. And also, I mean, so what I was about to say is, do I think it's possible that people that didn't like the film used bots? Totally. But do I also think it's possible that people that liked the film used bots? Mm-hmm. Also totally. This is an issue that's coming from both sides, and it's just kind of the nature of the internet right now, is that people can manage to do things like this. That's one of the things I wonder, like, with the Captain Marvel, the scores I saw the first week versus the second, and so the numbers of reviews dropped from like 50,000 to like 10,000. We're going to show you some pictures of that on screen. And is it possible that first score was largely bots? Perhaps. And they were trying to take down the bots then from there to get it down to what an accurate score would be. Now, my big concern with that is, so if you're cutting reviews to try and get an accurate score, how do you judge which ones are the bots? Are you just cutting the negative ones? Because there could be actual fans in there that are giving these very negative reviews. Mm-hmm. Like I said, talking to people in real life, I've heard the whole spectrum already. So that's, bots are just, it's an issue of the digital age. And it does raise some questions about how much we can trust these score meters.
Now, who would you rather have on your side? For instance, fans or critics? This is another great debate, too. Because me, personally, as a filmmaker, I'd rather have the fans because, and this isn't trying to be selfish or anything like that, but fans are what bring in the money.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Critics do advertise for it, but
critics help get more people to go see the film.
But to me, I rather, like, Alita Battle Angel, that's been in the news. There's been an Alita Battle Angel challenge to go out there and basically countermatch Captain Marvel. I don't know if you knew about this, but basically fans, instead of going to see Captain Marvel, are putting their money and going to see Alita for maybe a second or third time instead, giving their money all to them. Which, I mean, it's boosting to the industry that you're giving it to something.
Yeah, at least they're not just pirating the movies. That's important.
That's important. But one of those things is, it's like, I'd rather have the fans, and I know I'll get your opinion here in a second, but I would rather have the fans on my side than the critics.
I'd love to have both on my side, personally. But no, actually, I have to agree with you there, because what matters to me, I don't do film, but I do writing, and what matters to me is about just that my piece connects with people in like a deeper way. So I often say, like, I'd rather have like a really dedicated core group of people that really love the work I'm producing than to have masses that kind of like it. And so in that, I think I'd fall into the fans, because the critics are a lot of times just seeing these movies because that's what they do. That's their job, to go see the movies and give them ratings. The fans, though, that's where you're going to kind of build an audience. That's where you're going to build people who are really going to support you in your work. The critics aren't going to be like, "Ooh, yeah, I can't wait to see the next film." I mean, they might say it at the end of that, but like after the film's out of the movies and the reviews are gone, they're not going to go creating fan art or anything to help, like, because they've been inspired and to try and encourage you, or just because they want to see more. But the fans, you're going to get that, and you're going to kind of get that following. And I think the following in the long run is more important than a few good critic reviews.
One of these days, I'm going to get you to choose a side on something. You are so middle ground, it's not even funny. Anyways.
I mean, extremists don't want to be extreme.
Only a Sith deals with absolutes.
I was wondering if I was going to say it first. The first time I used it on you was the best, though.
Hey, the Sith won an empire. That's all I care about.
Yeah, but they didn't finish Luke off, so did they really win?
That is a topic for another day.
Yes, it is. We'll try to move on. We'll surely come back to Star Wars at some point, but we'll try to move on to other things.
Any final words to tell the fans out there, or about our topic, about anything in the news lately, or?
You mean like in regards to?
In regards to what we're talking about, or?
Like I said, I haven't seen Captain Marvel yet. I'm curious to go when I finally get a chance to see it, so I can judge it for myself. But no, I can't really think of anything else that's standing out there.
Okay, well that's it for us. I'm Don A. Shields.
I'm Jacob Ben Kinney.
And if you like this video, be sure to, of course, like it, subscribe, and share it with your friends. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.